Well, hello. It's time for Jurassic Part 2, The Lost World, 4M3, 5M1, The Roundup, but it's called The Hunt on the LP. Music by John Williams, orchestrated by Conrad Pope, the lovely Conrad. So, yes, the marking is bestial. I don't really have any sort of BPM proper markings for this, so they might all be sort of completely wrong, but it's one of the great cues of the film. Sadly, wasn't included in the actual film itself, but it does fit really well. And I think Frank Lehman has done a sort of review of this on JW Fan as well. So, but I just thought it was an interesting thing to do. Unfortunately, it is 100 and something bars long. 144, 145 bars long, that sort of thing. 144. I didn't quite realise how long it was before I started doing it, and of course I then have to go through the whole thing. There's huge amounts of notes, huge amounts of percussion, lots of synths, all sorts of different things. And actually it's probably worth just sort of talking about the orchestration actually just before we do anything. So if I sort of go up here, whoops, that's interesting. It's done the wrong thing, I think. There, let me just get the right file. Where are we? So yes, sorry, I had the reduction up there, and I needed to have the full score. So we can see sort of 3 flute parts. I think first flute actually doubles as a piccolo as well. That's not a cor anglais. It actually becomes a piccolo oboe, would you believe? Clarinet 1, 2. There's a contra alto clarinet to begin with, then a bass clarinet, but actually that doubles up as an E flat clarinet as well, and I think actually clarinet 2 plays the E flat clarinet rather than the third one. They double just standard bassoon, standard clarinet. Then we've got 2 bassoons, contrabassoons, 6 horns, 4 trumpets, 3 trombones in fact, and a bass trombone 3 and a bass trombone. I haven't really gone into this sort of properly, anyway I'll do that. Timpani don't have vibes, no glockenspiel. We do have suspended cymbal, tambourines, bongos, tom-toms, synth timbal, tuned unpitched timbal as well. We got piano, we got synthesizers, we got a harp as well. We got synth 2. In fact, that is that, not a celeste. And then a myriad of strings as well. So it's huge, absolutely huge. There's lots of sort of divided bits and stuff like that, and all sorts of things going on. But I've done a sort of rather extended reduction, just because I think it's then easier to kind of, seems a bit crazy to say it, but it's actually easier to see what's going on, because you can see, for example, here, so this sort of little cell, these sort of propulsive, that sort of idea, this sort of Phrygian Dominant, or mode 4 of a G harmonic minor, over the pedal G. You can sort of see how do those oboes fit in there. They just basically play the top 3 notes. It's really keeping it very simple. Guess what? The bassoons play the lowest 2 notes. That's a lovely blend actually, because we got a 5-note chord. So we've got 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5. So it mixes really, really well, because of course the double reeds are going to sort of accentuate those horns and sort of support them a little bit more as well. We've also got these trombones as well that sort of just percussively get in there a little bit. We've then got the strings which play the same notes, but they're kind of accenting specific beats as well. So you've also got that. They're just collegno those. So yeah, it's a really interesting cue. Broadly speaking, in G and then in D for the remaining bit of the cue. Very sort of limited pitch material to begin with. We've got these angular rhythmic cells, mainly in 23 beat segments. So in other words, I've counted up the quavers in 3/4, 3/4, 3/4, and 5/8. But then also the 3/4, 5/8, 3/4, 5/8 4-bar things are in actual 22 beat segments. So there's a lot of sort of non-symmetry or asymmetry to this, which is really interesting. And there are lots of these little fragmented motifs, which we'll go into. The percussion is mostly the same sort of rhythm. Like that. it does change occasionally. We've got sort of, you know, long logs, bongos, congas, all sorts of different things. Synth timbal as well, tom-toms. So, you know, the kitchen sink essentially. We've also got other layers of sort of tambourine counterpoint as well. So there's a huge amount, really. Is that this cue is not necessarily one for pitch material. This cue is one for rhythmic counterpoint. And it's interesting that that is the focus of the whole thing, and it doesn't try and do any more than one thing. So how does Williams achieve unity? Well, he has limited amounts of things going on. Essentially, there are two main things. We've got this sort of you know, that sort of thing, and then we've got the main theme, which is this. So we've got this 6-beat theme at this point. I'll play it on here. And then a little appoggiatura, like that. So let's just have a look at that, because I actually go into it because there's quite a lot of stuff to say. I haven't sort of put it all in one place because it clutters things. So we've got the long note initially. We then got a short long. So short long. Then a little 2 semiquaver quaver tied, and then it reiterates. Then 3 quavers, and then the short long again, which I suppose is symmetrical with that. But the tie is shorter, so here there's only 5 beats, and here there's 7 beats. We've then got this long note, which I suppose you could call a diminution, 2 of them, but half the length. More of these 2 semiquaver tied things, and then just a quaver at the end. I'll come back to that later when we talk about the counterpoint, but basically that's the main theme. That's what distinguishes the main theme. And then we've got this bum ba dum ba dum ba da ba da ba da, which appears as well. The third aspect is actually the whole sort of rhythmic percussion section, so all of this sort of stuff. Basically that gets played in the strings a little bit later on as well. So yeah, we start off with broadly in G. We then got this D Phrygian Dominant, that sort of idea. Sorry, with a C natural, not a C sharp. And then we're straight into the main theme. So on the horns and trombones. And here the counterpoint is relatively simple, but we've also got amazing sort of bass things going on. So here there's a different bass line. So we've actually got 2 bass counterpoints, which is really unusual, but let's not forget this is just collegno, so it's not really bass sounding. The bass sounding is just this. So if we just try, well, in fact, actually, if I just do that, then we can hear that. Like that. And you can see that, of course, little bits of this are fragmented. Remember our 2 semiquavers tied quaver? That's one there. We've then got these little sort of woodwind sort of interjections as well. And then we got this sort of ostinato-y timpani and bongos and things like that as well. So there's lots of different layers. We've got layer 1, the melody. We've got the bass, that's layer 2. We've then got the collegno, a percussive counterpoint, that's level 3. Another bit here, that's 4. And I suppose you could even include that as 5th layer. And really that's the sort of maximum 5 layers at any one time. But that's really interesting, isn't it? 5 layers of counterpoint. And I've delineated them here. So we've got the thematic restatement in the trumpets. We've got our main counterpoint in the trombones. We've still got our bass counterpoint there. And then everything else is sort of a filigree. Counterpoint 4, counterpoint 3, a sort of 4th level in percussion there as well. With those 5 levels of things going on at the same time. Here there's a slight varied ending, like that as well, and then we've got a little sort of cellular bit with the 3 quavers and da-da-da, 2 semiquavers, quaver, this time not tied. And then the strings now take over from the percussion part. So remember when I was talking about that before, you can see it really fits in with what's going on here. Very, very simplistic in terms of the actual notes used, but in terms of the percussive aspect of how it fits in with everything else, it's really complicated. We've also got these sort of whip and slapsticks going on as well. Really, really difficult to sort of follow sight reading wise as well. It must have been difficult to perhaps record this one. And then similar to what we had before, the bum ba-dum ba-dum ba-da-ga-da-dum. So we've got that. This time we've got the added C pedals here. So we've got a D Phrygian Dominant but above a pedal C at that particular point, and a slight change in thematic accompaniment there as well. Let me just make that there. So we've got that. We've also got a slight change in the percussiveness of things. We've got sort of congas and logs, but they're slightly separated this time. We've also got sort of suspended cymbals and ratchets and things like that. But basically, you know, it's about these sort of, and this is not the short long, it's just a long boom, boom, like that, these sort of pedal Cs, which are interesting. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 beats each. So again, it's sort of quite irregular as well. And then we have these little trumpet interjections, which are going to become more and more frequent as the cue progresses. We've got a little scale-it bit, and then it goes back to G at that point. So this is where I'm talking about the motivic interplay. So we did this long note, short long, 2 semiquavers, quaver tied. Sometimes it's not a quaver tied. And you can see here we've got these 2 semiquavers, bits, bum, digga-da-bum, short long, bum, like that, which is just the sort of first part of that. So even that's a variation. More short longs here. So you can see how it all fits in. There's a tight motivic unity to the piece, which is really interesting in the absence of that pitch material. We're then straight into D. With a little sort of scale-it bit going to D. So here the theme restatement is now on the trumpets. We've then got filigree added as well. So again, another layer of counterpoint. So we've got the thematic bit. We've got the bass part, which is just this sort of repeated quaver with a quaver rest. We've got sort of another bass layer. So that's sort of 2 more counterpoints, so 3 layers. We then got that as a 4th layer, and then I suppose you could include that as a 5th layer, and that's a 6th layer. It's quite funny if you play it on the piano, it just sounds absolutely bizarre. But there's just so much going on, it's just crazy. But you can see it's very clear, you know, there's a clarity to it, which is really interesting, even though it doesn't look like it on the page. So 61, if I go to bar 61, let's try and do that quickly. Here it looks, you know, phenomenally complicated, but actually it's still quite clean. So we've got that layer there, that's obvious. That goes with the bass layer here, with the timps, and we'll see the synths and the bass, so that's the bass layer. We've got the main theme, which is here as well. And then we've got that additional woodwind layer too, along with all the sort of the toms and the repeated sort of strings as well at that point. Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating how it's all put together. So then more filigree, more trumpet interjections, more counterpoint, more stuff going on. Then we've got our little unison passage that uses the percussion ostinato at that particular bit, and that carries on for a while. The main theme, a little fragment of it, before all the bass suddenly cuts out, apart from the timps, bum bum, with a crash in the cymbals. More trills, and then we've got this sort of angular sort of rising thematic bit. that, and then it's sort of like that as well. Whoops, don't quite know what happened there. That's trumpets, of course. Then we're sort of sudden change with those E naturals. The bass sort of goes B flat, A, and then to D, Aeolian. So it's going to D at this point, which we had before. That just then kind of repeats really the same material that we had before, with those layers that we pointed out just before in the orchestration bit. So main theme in yellow, the counterpoint 3, counterpoint 2 here, counterpoint 4, counterpoint 5. I suppose you could call that counterpoint 6 as well. Same as before, and then again it happens this time with the strings, so it just has a sort of slightly different orchestration at that point. And then suddenly we've got the new material. And what's interesting about this is that we've got the sort of our sort of D thing like that, and we've also got sort of a little bit more of those sort of quartal, quintal type chords. So that's all D, but then we've got B flat and then we've got A flats. So if we put those all together, it's not a far cry away from... It's almost like an octatonic in D. That's why it feels sort of really dramatic. The C natural doesn't quite make it octatonic, because there's no C sharps in any of this at all. So it's not quite there, but I've shown you how closely it is almost there, basically. But it's one of those cues that's not quite octatonic, even though it's an action music cue, all of it. So yeah, A flats, or G sharp I suppose you could say, and then it just ends on this sort of tribal counterpoint with again 5 rhythmic layers. It's interesting actually. Let's just have a quick look at that right at the end, at 141. It's quite a cool thing because it fades, which is interesting actually. Let's see whether it actually plays it. Of course, it's not D and A. It's just that's just I didn't put a percussion part in it, basically. But you can sort of see how it works. Like that. So we got that sort of rhythmic. I think it's 23 beat rhythmic cell, which is how it starts. So again, Williams is very, very good at this sort of bookending idea of sort of starting a cue, finishing quite similarly in terms of the same sort of thing. He's got col legno at the beginning, then right at the very, very end of the cue, I can do that, he's got col legno again, along with the sort of bongos and things like that. So it's a very tight, rhythmic, very, very good example of rhythmic percussive counterpoint, with a very complex theme, which is made up of small numbers of individual elements, with limited pitch material, because actually if you think about all those notes, that's all of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, basically 5 notes. So it's amazing what you can do with 5 notes, but just reiterated, it's not what the notes are, it's how you play them, and it's how they're incorporated rhythmically into everything else. And it's a hugely good example. So that bit from 54 I think is actually really fascinating because of the fact of all of this counterpoint as well. And of course the principles of counterpoint is if you've got something with nothing going on in terms of recessiveness, we then have some progressiveness. So there is something going along in all of the gaps, and you can see that very clearly in these 2 bars. I'll just highlight them to begin with. So whenever there's space here, something else is filling it. Here, space, something's filling it. But space, something's filling it. Space, the rest, something's filling it. Time note, space, something's filling it. And look, in the space here, we've now got another little something's filling it. So that's the way counterpoint works, is that you have 2 completely contrasted, rhythmically independent lines. And it's a brilliant example of not just those 2 layers, but don't forget all the other layers going on as well. So we've got 3 layers, 4 layers, 5 layers, and then of course 6 layers. There we go. That's it. That's the cue. It's 144 bars long. It took me about 3 weeks to do that, almost 4 actually, just because it's been incredibly hot here in the UK. We've had sort of 4 heat waves. It's 33 degrees today again. So yeah, it's just sort of quite hard to kind of put everything together. But anyway, I'm glad I did it. It's a great cue. I think actually the whole score for this particular film is absolutely fantastic as well. Yeah, what an amazing experience to have, for Conrad to have orchestrated it as well. It must be mind-blowing actually, sort of trying to get all of those sketch material into this, and re-space everything. Really extremely difficult to do. So that is it for now, and look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye for now.